Good morning. Well found with the MQL Suite Morning Market Report. Investments with margin exchange involve considerable economic risks, and anyone who does them does so under their own and exclusive responsibility. Therefore, the author of this teaching session assumes no responsibility for any direct or indirect damages in relation to investment decisions taken by the listener. Today is Thursday, the 4th of April. US-China trade talks resume. The Chinese delegation will meet with President Trump today. It seems that the agreement is very close. The White House Economic Counselor Larry Kudlow, in an interview yesterday, said that China recognized last week for the first time that US complaints about intellectual property theft, forced technology transfer, and cyber hacking are legitimate. The International Monetary Fund has declared that a trade war would seriously damage the economies of the United States and China, but at the same time it would favor Canada and Mexico. China would be the most penalized by an increase in duties, since exports to the States represent a greater share of its output. The United States could offset the contraction of imports from China by importing higher quotas from Canada and Mexico. The statistical models show that this change in trade relations would lead to a slight decline in the U.S. trade deficit with China, but no significant change in the trade balance of either side. Wall Street closed up yesterday, but far from the highs. The data released yesterday disappointed operators, especially those related to ADP. The activity of the tertiary sector has registered the minimum for 19 months, while the jobs of the private sector have grown less than expected, supporting the decision of the Fed to suspend any increase in rates for this year. Investors fear a strong economic slowdown in the first quarter of 2019. Traders await no-farm payrolls. The previous data was 211,000. The consensus is 216,000. In the United Kingdom, yesterday the Parliament voted against the possibility of no-deal Brexit scheduled for April the 12th, and approved a measure that forced Theresa May to seek a new postponement. Theresa May is working with opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn to find an agreement. The attempted agreement envisages the possibility of a soft Brexit with the customs union with the European Union. In Germany, the industrial orders data for February are on the agenda today. After the manufacturing PMI disappointed investors and fell to the 2012 lows, disappointment came from industrial data, which contracted by 4.2%. The January figure was minus 0.2%. Expectations for February were 0.3%. It's 20 minutes to 11 at this moment. The Australian dollar is on the daily parity versus the Swiss franc. The euro yesterday rebounded against the dollar on a critical level, but continues to shrink against the pound and is losing 0.06%. The pound strengthens in the wake of the optimism generated by the talks between Theresa May and the opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn, and is earning 0.21% versus the Australian dollar, 0.26% versus the Canadian dollar, 0.17% versus the Swiss franc, 0.9% versus the Japanese yen, 0.10% versus the New Zealand dollar, and 0.15% versus the dollar. New Zealand dollar is gaining 0.9% versus the Swiss franc. Finally, USD CHF is on the daily parity. The silver is losing 0.03%, the platinum is gaining 1.85%, and the palladium is gaining 0.39%. The strongest currency this morning is the pound, that is gaining 0.92% on the basket. On the contrary, the weakest currency is the Canadian dollar, that is losing 0.96% on the basket. The best performance is recorded by GBP CAD, that is earning 0.25%, and the worst performance is recorded by the CAD yen, that is losing 0.14%. That's all for now. Have a nice trading.